off, bruh.
All right. Welcome to Weeksauce. This is Weeksauce episode, what the heck, number 20. And Garrett is on vacation in New York, hanging out with friends, having a good time. And I've got Kristen here in his place. Welcome back, Kristen.
Well, thank you for having me, Kyle. It's good to be back.
It's good to have you on this fine Monday morning. Though normally the host is the woke up one. You've got hours on me. You've already been up and active for a while, so you tell me how Monday's going.
So far, Monday's going great. It was an awesome workout. The sun's shining. It seems like it's going to be another warm spring day. And the cat is happy. And if the cat's happy, everybody is happy.
That's all it takes. That's all it takes. Well, we normally go through some of the news that happened over the weekend, talk about what we've been playing. We also have a lot of questions. We take these questions over on Twitter at the end of the show, and we're going to just burn through a bunch of them today and enjoy them. There's a lot of awesome questions you guys get to us, and we only take about one or two at the end of each show. So Kristen and I are just going to bust through a bunch of them today. But have you been playing anything interesting? I've been on that Pillars of Eternity Deadfire business. It kind of farted off and wants me to grind a lot, so we'll see about that.
Well, the big question is, how does it compare to the one we played as the 4-stack?
Oh,
Divinity 2,
yeah.
Original Sin. How does it compare?
I mean, I think they are very comparable, kind of like the old, I always think of Prototype versus Infamous, how we tend to have these games that all kind of come out and are the same style. Not quite like the MMO craze. That's more of a, it's more of a dirty knife fight than an actual, like, everyone kind of ended up accidentally being fans at the same time. That was more just a money race. But Divinity will always be very special because we did it in that full co-op with John, with yourself, with Jeff. And I gotta say, when it comes to, loot being all hidden all over a room like that, I really do miss 3 other players that really like looting things, because I couldn't give a butt's crap. And because there's going to be better items anywhere. And anyway, and with the modern crafting systems at work, you're going to craft something better eventually anyway.
But what about selling the things you find? That's my whole thing. You're going to sell it, and then by the end of the game, you're going to be sitting on a stack of gold to craft everything you could possibly want for that final scene of the game.
That's true. And I do think Deadfire is very well balanced for hunger. It really makes me want to upgrade my ship. The prices on upgrading your ship are really spot on. And I gotta get money. Though the morale system, you have like a morale system with your ship, and it's not hard to do.
Wait, morale system. So you have to befriend your ship? Is it a sentient boat?
No. It's more like it's your crew. In your crew's overall morale. I mean, imagine Mass Effect, right? You had crew members, and you wanted to keep them happy. Maybe Dragon Age is a better analogy, because that actually had kind of a meter in there. But much like Dragon Age, you can just go buy gifts. And in this case, the big gift you can share with your entire team is sharing the plunder after you do a pirate bus kind of situation. Or some pirate attacks you, and, you're not a bad person. You're not a pirate. But you destroy their ship and take everything they got and kill them all. And then you share that loot with your crew, and your crew's like, it's out of 100, and the crew's like, yay, plus 25 points, and everybody's happy. When they're at their max happy, by the way, they're singing like shanty songs on the open seas. It's pretty awesome.
Oh, okay, so this isn't like BioWare, where if you murder everybody on this pirate ship, there's 1 or 2 people that go, you know what, no. This is too far. We may be chasing down a god, and we may have kicked that little girl's puppy, but this is where it crosses the line. Minus 50.
I mean, I like that the subtlety went up as we got further away from Star Wars, because in Star Wars land, it's like, please, Master Jedi, I am very, very rich, and I would like to get on this transport. And then you turn, and there's like a woman in the mud with her 5 children, and she's like, please give me the tickets. And you literally do kick those puppies and steal their money. And it's just as bad as it could possibly be. but you know you're getting force points for it, so it's kind of okay. This world isn't quite as white and black. It's Oblivion made, so, or Obsidian made. Obsidian. I always think Oblivion because there was that Elder Scroll. I get my RPGs confused. But it's Oblivion, or Obsidian made, which means it's very faction heavy. They're the ones who made New Vegas. They made KOTOR 2. They do a lot of the sequels for a lot of different games. And they really enjoy that who's a hero and is good and are the gods worthy of our praise kind of thing, which after Divinity, to kind of get back to your original question, is a bit thick. And it's an interesting trend to be so obsessed with the gods and have them be personified and have them once be human or be faulted. But it adds such a biblical weight of lore on top of everything. It's like you go into the Lord of the Rings movie, instead it began with the dwarfs. Instead of that, they're like, it began with all those weird made up crappy names you've seen in extended Tolkien lore about how the world was made and the world of men came on boats or something. Like, imagine it starts with that and then asks you, okay, now get into it.
You know what? No, I won't get into it. Thank you.
Yeah.
You gotta just drop me in the middle of the action and let it go. That's why KOTOR, I think, is such an amazing game, because your ship is blowing up and you have to get off the ship and the story goes from there.
Yeah. And in that way, it stages itself for its different difficulties, how it's more of an intro world kind of thing. And I think Divinity did that a bit better. So I would say Divinity 2 is the superior game. But like I said, I really enjoyed the fact that I had friends, that the battle system was turn-based, so spell casting isn't such a bother, because, man, they go about these games, like KOTOR, again, you know, you cast lightning, and you have recovery time. It's a round system, so you go, because you're evil. And then you have to kind of wait a little bit of clunk, and then your character will go do his auto attack or whatever he's got queued up next. In the Baldur's Gate nostalgia system, that spell costs you a whole round to cast, which is 6 seconds. So your character stands there for 6 seconds summoning the spell, and then eventually it goes off. And then that spell itself has a 4-second recovery time until your dude does the next 6-second cast in a real-time setting.
That sounds boring. But I'm a real-time girl. I hate turn-based games. I don't hate them, but they're so boring to me. I've tried so many times to get into turn-based games, and 15 minutes in, I'm done. I can't take it anymore.
So, but you played Divinity 2 with us. I mean, that was all turn-based.
It was, but the actions you took weren't turns, they felt like. And it got a bit dreary at times, but I think what helped is that friends were there. We were all there joking to make it so that these turns, though they took 30 minutes to take down a frog, were too boring. You know, everyone was talking, working together to come up with a strategy. But if you're playing by yourself, why am I taking turns with a cave bat? That doesn't make any sense to me. It'd be dead already.
Well, you never, now, I don't mean this as a throw you under the bus moment, but you never played Pokemon, right?
I have. I've tried Pokemon.
Sure, tried, yeah.
Yeah, and I probably played 30 minutes. Maybe I got 45 minutes in, but again, it's just so boring. You go around, okay, and the collecting part isn't boring. I like the idea of trying to catch them all. It's great. You got your trophies, and there's a chance you could get everything. But every time, you know how many Weedles you have to fight? Why does it take so long to kill a caterpillar?
My friend lent me, was it Diamond or one of those new, made up Pokemon colors. And there was a Bellsprout Tower. And I've never been so offended in my life. Because Ghastly Tower or Ghost Tower, where all the Pokemon were dead and you had to fight a bunch of different kinds of dead ghosts, that's at least interesting and adds to the lore. But this was literally a tower to climb of nothing but Bellsprouts and Bellsprout wielding Pokemon masters.
Can you be considered a master of Bellsprouts? Is that honestly a thing?
Like,
Do other Pokemon trainers respect
no,
the quiet Bellsprout trainer?
no one's. I mean, I think Victory Bell is like his final form, and I don't even think I fought one of those in there. I could be wrong, but I mean, that's like inviting people over to see your garden. All you got is a chia pet.
A little bonsai tree, but it's half wilted. You've been trying to snip off the brown branches so it looks more like a stick that has some moss growing on it. But you know what? It's still alive, and that's what matters.
I can't blame video game reviews for being shallow, because a lot of these games are ginormous. And if you want to review a game poorly and then a community crops up that loves that game, they're going to hate your review for the rest of the time. So why not go easy on it? Why not just, catch the first couple hours and make your assumption based on that? And I think a lot of these modern games have a lot of filler, and the main quest can be pursued aggressively early on, but later on it ends up hitting some sort of crafting or gathering wall that those initial reviews just simply didn't see coming.
Do you think this kind of, let's call it a review culture, for lack of a better, we're making up a term here, review culture, if they only play the first 2 hours...
way more Twitter scandalous than it should be. I am sickened by our current
review culture. But do you think this review culture ultimately will go on to influence game developers to make really strong openers, but then just fizzle out as the game goes on? Do you think games are in danger of this, or just the games that are trying to appeal to reviewers that actually don't play the whole thing?
Oh man, I didn't think of that question, but it is an obvious one, and it's tough not to just say yes, absolutely. I think what I've seen of the modern God of War shows quite a bit of that. It's this real kind of like hold your hand, and not in the bad way, not in the hold hand kind of way that we normally talk about video games. I'm talking like about all the people who are like, oh no, I think this game's stupid and violent, and they're all like, no, it's a story. See, he has a son. Come on, we're gonna kill a deer.
It's deeper.
And they touch the deer and they grab you by the wrist.
And covered with the dust of his dead family.
But there's blood on the deer. I don't want to touch it. No, it's going to be okay. And then a great boss battle happens that evolves into a greater boss battle. And then all the fans of classic God of War are like, oh, man, this is what I was looking for. But we had to kind of sit through all the casuals getting into it as well.
Oh, so that brings up a good point. Do you think this more modern God of War, from what we've seen of it, was made to bring in people who'd never played God of War before? Because let's not forget, the original one started off with you on the ship and a mini game, and you're banging chicks until the base falls off the bedside table, and then you move on and you fight the Hydra, and it goes from there.
That's yes. Like a guy comes in and says Captain Above Deck or something, right? You don't defeat the Hydra first. You literally are in the room at the start.
Yeah, and your ship breaks apart. I mean, the first one starts off just like, oh, this is going to be sick. This is going to be the most wicked thing you've ever played. You see how sexy this scene is? That's how gory this game is going to go. Because, you have to have the extremes, right? You have to have extreme sex with extreme violence. They just go well together.
Yeah, well, and you don't want to catch people off guard later on with your violence or sexuality. So it's important to put all those things out in the beginning of the video game. It's definitely an interesting time in video games because things are so crafted. And and this isn't to say that Obsidian spaced out, but there is the Wizard Tower, the tower where you are not allowed in. Yeah, they call it something completely different. It's like a water shaper's tower. But it's a place you're not allowed in because they're dicks. They're wizard dicks. And then they have a problem inside that you have to solve because they unleashed something they couldn't handle. And you naturally, upon entering there, have to enter into your party a wizard who's like, you can't go in there without me. I'm the only one who knows the way around the tower. But it's a simple staircase. Like, it goes up, you know? It's not complicated.
But magic, Kyle.
Right, but these are the beats
Harry
that we
Potter,
hit.
they had changing staircases.
That's true. That could have been in there, but it wasn't. I'm just saying, like, Dragon Age, we well established the Wizard Dick Tower as being a place where that story is going to happen. And if you want to make an RPG, there's a lot of cut and copy you can just kind of do. Maybe for filler, maybe because they're just the best versions of the stories, which is okay, right?
Yeah. And being a wizard aficionado yourself, would you be a dick wizard? Or would you try to be a nice wizard that accepts all into the fold of wizardom?
I mean, I'd rather be the wandering storyteller than a tenured college professor. So I think that kind of gives you an idea of
the outcast wizard, the one who tries to understand the world instead of sitting in his cloister.
Right. Well, I mean, that's the classic, right? Is the we're all part of the elite society. Look at our badges. And then there's the wizard who's actually powerful and worldly. So if your question is, do I desire intelligence or wisdom? I desire wisdom.
I was just asking if you would be a dick wizard who lived in a dick wizard tower.
No, I would hope I wouldn't be, but I'm sure I'd have my own dickdoms, as all wizards do.
What would be your biggest dictum, do you think, as a wizard? What would drive you? Would it be the elves? Would it be the dwarves? If you were the wizard, what would your tick be?
I mean, I like the, I do like the Witcher idea of that everything's fine and dandy, but when they say they're not going to pay you, you just get to kick ass. So I think that'd be my dictum. I think, you know, I'd be a kind, sharing wizard, but should you not, you know, are you unwilling to pay the trap fee for my ghost busting? I'll put him right back in there.
That's fair. I don't think that's too dickish. It's more neutral, right? But yeah, that's fair, right? Because then everyone gets their comeuppance, and you get to play God in a sense.
Well, it's also a different world, right? Like, I mean, you buy an exterminator with a credit card online who then comes by and does the job. He doesn't vacuum them into some sort of special bug bag that he can then release again when your check bounces.
What a world that would be, huh? You think it would be better for the world or worse?
I think it'd be worse. I think there's an effectiveness to the current exterminating culture.
I agree. The whole point, after all, is to kill everything, leave none alive.
And my point is, I'm happy that I've made, you know, just to put a cap on it, I'm happy I made it through such a big chunk of a classic, if you will. You know, it's a new game, Deadfire, but if you've never played a Baldur's Gate, they can be very chunky, they can be very old, and it's nice to experience it. But it's a little too A-movie. It's not strategy enough. It's not, if your combat doesn't just slam its face in the other side win, I just go level up somewhere else, and that's kind of disappointing to me.
That'll happen.
What about you, Kristen? What have you been playing?
Evil Within, actually.
How? Okay, so Evil Within is, I mean, when I first saw it, I really wanted to play it because it was looked like a Resident Evil clone.
Yes, and what Chet was telling me the other day, apparently it's made by the guy who worked on Resident Evil.
Oh, well, wait a minute then. That's not really a feat, is it?
Maybe,
like,
I don't know.
Inspired by, and what great influence. Oh, it's the same guy. Well, then I guess he's just copying himself.
Well, we all do, right?
Yeah, no, we all have our pet projects and the ideas we love. God knows Blizzard has its stories it loves. So, Evil Within.
Yes, Evil Within.
How was the horror? How spooky? What if I enjoy Resident Evil 4, would I enjoy Evil Within?
Evil Within is a bit more serious. So Resident Evil 4, I think, is so wonderful because it's so campy. It knows it's a cheesy horror game, and it takes it to the level. You know it's great when you end the game on a jet ski, escaping a falling cave, and you don't bang the chick.
She's a fool. And also the president's daughter.
Yes, yes. But this one is one of those games where you're in the middle of this mess and everyone kind of realizes it's not reality, but you're trying to uncover these stories that have been strung together in some psychological way. So horror-wise, there's been one good jump scare that got me after, I don't know how many hours, about 10 hours I've been playing. 5 hours. Okay. But it's gory. It's a gore game, and they load you up on weapons, so you never really feel scared more so than stressed because the monsters have a lot of health. So like a Dark Souls feel, but not as hard as Dark Souls.
I mean, the game I immediately think of is other AAA kind of horror titles in that vein, like Dead Space, where you have a lot of different ways to kill an enemy. If you put points into it, probably by the end you're using the same couple weapons. But Dead Space did at least remain gross, I guess you could say. I like Dead Space for its action. The horror is a bonus, and the enemies are so disgusting that the horror is continued because I don't want them touching me.
That's fair enough. Yeah, this one is more kind of gross out horror. So I guess horror action rather than action horror. But Dead Space is a great example to compare it to, because it's not true horror in the sense you're going to be scared for a week after you play this thing. It's not like that at all. Unless, of course, you don't like poking brains or eyeballs exploding, that kind of stuff.
No, I mean, that's true. There's something way more creepy about the things that aren't happening or could happen, like the somebody watching you through a window idea, right? Like that's creepy. But the idea of having to poke a brain to reach inside a mouth and pull out a key, like those are gross. But I've never been, going to the bathroom late at night, had that thought pop in my head and been like, whoa, I got to run back to the bedroom. I don't want to pull a key out of a mouth.
Exactly. Karth is sitting there meowing and you realize, oh no. Is this reality or is this the horrible fantasy where he's gonna barf on my foot?
Oh, wait. So it's kind of a Silent Hill sort of gig where there's like you're not sure if you're in the alternative world at the moment or not?
Oh, you're absolutely in an alternative world. There's no doubt to this thing. Even the main character talks about this isn't real all the time. So you're not even in any sort of illusion that what you're seeing is real. Now, they have hinted at this really interesting idea that you and 4 other people are hooked up to this brain machine where you're sharing a consciousness. And one of the people in this thing is a serial killer. And that's why it went so hog wild with insanity and grossness. And we've only just started to discover that guy's story. So maybe at the end we're all going to wake up and it was the weirdest Inception trip anybody's ever taken.
It would make sense with the name of the game.
It would. And also we've discovered, of course, there's a dark backstory to our main character. So who's the real bad guy and what is the actual reality? Interesting.
I feel like Silent Hill, particularly, was it 2? Just did something really special with that idea. And I don't trust any game since, because I've wanted other games to be Silent Hill, to pull that off. The whole idea that, a lot of these are constructs of our main character. And so often that is what they pull at the end, but that Dead Space 2, all the monsters were personifications of like sexy legs, and well, the door dog made no sense, but a couple of them made some sense.
Didn't Dead Space 2 also introduce the exploding babies?
You know what? Yeah. Wait, no. Dead Space 1 had the babies with the 3 tentacle shots.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Those
Dead
were
Space
nasty.
2 had the nursery that had the crawling babies. And you could say that was related to the fact that you were looking for your girlfriend again? Or your girlfriend had come back, she was in your head, she was haunting you.
That one was like a weird amalgamation of 10 stories cut and pasted together with Scotch tape and some Elmer's glue. There's some
But
really,
yeah.
really great moments, you know? You got some gold leaf, and the relief somebody carved in is beautifully detailed, but then the next piece taped on is a crayon drawing of a house.
Well, that is EA at that time, right? They were very compartmentalized. There was a team that did the armory, and then there was a different team that did the daycare, and sometimes elements would mix of the two, and there'd be story beats where you were attacked by your frightening girlfriend, and then 2 scenes later you were attacked again by the frightening girlfriend in the same exact way but slightly different. There was a low communication, and in fact, we talked about it here before, or at least I have, and you can now back me up on this, that the Witcher's small team allowed it to have such a great through line.
Yeah, you gotta have creative direction. And I think something I've settled on in this discussion is that when it comes to horror games, you need to get to the end before you can really kind of judge it. Because so much of horror really relies on how the ending is wrapped up and if that ending was hinted at through the rest of the story. Because horror is terrifying, but horror that makes sense on top of it, that's really good stuff.
Yeah. I think you could say that for every story, but horror, the ending is such a huge part of the enjoyment. And with an adventure, you can still enjoy the journey. Horror is about the ending.
Yeah, and that's a great point, right? Now, when it comes to horror, what's your favorite kind of ending for a horror movie? Do you like the evil being defeated, or do you like an evil that can't be defeated? It's just delayed for another turn of the wheel, as it were.
I like completed stories. I think I've been very changed by the modern movie system since, early 2000. I'm kind of sick of sequel hints at the end of my movies. So I'd rather everybody has to get on with their lives as best they can, I like that.
But do you like the evil defeated 100%? It's never coming back. Or do you like evil that can only be delayed again?
Oh, that's fine, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't mind. I guess I really don't care. It's more about the reactions of the people and if those people will be subjected to a sequel. And that's the real problem with sequels, particularly for horror movies.
Yeah, a lot of the times those sequels kind of lose sight of what made the first one so special. I think Saw is a great example of that. The first movie, when the first Saw came out, it was incredible. It just blew away horror audiences ever with how unique and refreshing it was. And then the sequels come along and it turns into this gore fest joke, I guess, but that's a lot of horror movies, right? Even the classics, Freddy, Jason, you just do them so many times.
Yeah, it's a tough sell for the Saw series because I feel like it was always that and didn't have somewhere else to go. So it kind of hit its own wall. Whereas, I mean, a lot like Aliens, I guess, too, that we struggled to find lore in something that maybe shouldn't have been explained further in the first place.
Right? You don't need to answer all the questions, and you shouldn't answer all of the questions. Because that's what makes, I think, something very, very intriguing, and why you get these fan bases that are obsessed with finding answers, because all of the answers aren't there. We get to create our own endings and explanations.
I agree. Shall we have at these questions?
Yeah!
All right. Well, you're my reading eye human. So you go ahead and take them away.
Okay, first question from this morning from Jack Fox. What should I read? Badger Lord. I don't know. What name should I read? What does Garrett usually do?
What? Oh, go with the tag.
Okay.
And a lot of these names, of course, we know from around the A-Move community. So we'll just read the gamer tag.
All right, Badger Lord. What is one thing you have done or that happened while you were nearby that you wish you could forget ever happened and never have your brain remind you of ever again?
Wow. Boy, that's really kind of tilted by our recent discussion about horror games. You got something in mind?
Oh, yeah. Back in college, I was my roommate's cat was on my lap, and she gets up to walk away and farts. But this isn't just a regular fart; it's a diarrhea fart. So I am sharted on by this cat, and it smells, and my poor clothes were gone. And we laughed. Oh, I was in tears. It was so funny. But if I could forget that ever happened, I think I could move on and accept cats more than I do today.
I think that's fair. There's certainly a lack of trust in cats since that experience. To be fair, and I think we're safe to say that maybe they're not listening. Luna's a bit of a craggly little cat.
She's gotten a lot more craggly. She's, what, 10, 11 years old now?
Yeah.
I mean, this cat is still going. She's still going. And she's one of those really skinny calico, watches you because she's probably planning something kind of cats.
Yeah, has that really kind of ball muzzle.
Yeah.
You know, like a panther. And some cats have really flat faces. Some cats have very kind of, line or, just leopardy faces, like very cute, I'd say. And then there's the kind of longer, mischievous panther face cats that I just don't trust.
Yep. And so that's one thing I wish I could just scrub from my memories.
That's a good one. I think for me, yours is pretty graphic. And
you're not going to go as graphic.
No,
we gotta balance it out.
It's just a different kind of horror from being sharded on from a cat. I remember a couple of my baby tooth losings really intensely, and I'd rather not. Because just the feeling of teeth being loose and falling out is just awful.
Yeah, you remember playing with them too, with your tongue?
Oh, totally. And like the majority of mine came out in violent events on purpose too. Like I would purposefully get really klutzy around the time when I had loose teeth. And I lost one at SeaWorld, falling on my face. Like a duck goose I fell over during and lost a tooth during that. While diving, I chipped a tooth. Like I have a lot of very strong memory, particularly the diving and chipping the tooth on the bottom of the pool with a big smile on my face. And then I was at summer camp, so I had to spend the next 3 weeks missing half my front tooth. But luckily, I was 12 or 13. That sounds about right. At the time, it was summer camp. So I didn't care too much about girls. Like, it would have been really tragic to, like, lose half your front tooth at, like, the 16-year-old camp.
Yes, it would have been.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. John
Tooth-related
Jagger.
Injuries.
Huh?
Tooth-related injuries.
Yeah, those are pretty good. Yeah, those good to forget. Never remember. All right, John Jagger asks, which fictional movie, TV, book, or game character do you think best represents you? In spirit, not appearance.
This might actually be an easier question to answer for each other.
Right? Oh, man.
Because we just watched Ace Ventura, and that solidifies and distills so much of what I believe young Kristen was, that, I mean, the amount of control you must exert over your own body at all times to not be flailing about must be very difficult for you.
It's extremely hard. I have to say, it's taken years to kind of figure out what is acceptable Ace Ventura in public and what is not acceptable Ace Ventura in public.
Right. I mean, mine are a lot more punny and wordplay. So your chance is to, grab your butt and make it talk. When will be my shot? Mine, I'm waiting in the sidelines, waiting to use some bad pun I've come up with. But that's clearly that's not who your like mental projection of yourself would be.
It's hard to pick just one, right? Because growing up, I've been influenced by so many things. So, and I know I like to joke that deep down, I'm like a 6'6", muscle-bound god. Kratos would be a spirit animal of mine. Commander Shepard, it's hard to pick just one, but I think Ace Ventura works.
Yeah, we're not talking about dream bodies or who we
But
want to
you know,
be.
the soul, and John says in spirit, not appearance.
That's fair.
So some animated otter, Kyle. I don't know. All right, so I like Ace Ventura. So now it's my turn to pick something for you. If we're gonna be fair with this.
Mm-hmm.
And we also just watched The Page Master. So I'm gonna go with little Kyle being the little kid that just didn't want to get into anything. But eventually something magical came along and showed him the way that there's a whole world out there. And little Kyle grew up.
I was nodding my head like I was going to get to be the Page Master, the wizard, played by Doc Brown. But now you gave me Macaulay Culkin.
If I get Ace Ventura, you get Macaulay Culkin.
I guess that's fair. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to picture myself as a wizard, but a lot of them are dicks. Like, Doctor Strange, he's a dick and becomes a better person, but still kind of a dick. Same with Tony, right? A lot of the wizards I admire are just butts. But that's kind of your wizard way, your whiz biz.
Yeah, and you already said you wouldn't be one of those dick wizards.
No, I try my best not to be. Well, yeah. Because Doctor Strange does a really good job fighting the system and eventually takes it over. So he is the system. In which case, if the tower's invaded, it's his fault. And at least he's the one to join the party.
Yeah, there you go. All right, Kilmarnock. What recent documentaries have you watched that you'd recommend?
You've been watching quite a few. And in particular, you've been watching some World War II one?
World War I really in color, which has been really, really nice. It's narrated by Kenneth Branagh, so it's impeccable narration. Really good.
Who's he?
He's that big Shakespearean actor. He was in the film Much Ado About Nothing. He played Hamlet opposite Kate Winslet. He was Gilderoy Lockhart in the Harry Potter series.
Oh, right. He's supposed to be a huge tool.
That's what I hear, but he's good. He's really good at what he does. Oh, he was also a commander in Dunkirk. The guy standing at the end of the pier waiting for the British ships to arrive. So that's a really good one. Namely, I think it was episode 3 where it goes over the aircraft history. That's some really good stuff. And but one I keep coming back to is the Empires series, and more specifically the Empires series that goes over the Medicis. Really, really cool, because not only is the narration really fun and the facts really cool that they present to you, but it's acted out. They've got actors in period costumes with period pieces all over the place telling the story of the Medicis.
Wait, are we still talking about World War I?
No. I was saying World War I in color is really good, but one of my favorites that I always go back to is that Empire series.
Because I was ready to nod along that the Medicis were part of World War I.
Which you can. Whatever.
Yeah, just accept it. Don't look like a fool. Oh, man. Documentary. There's a lot of good ones. You know what? The old Attenborough documentaries where things are still rather imperialistic are really good. It's just a different time period. There's an isolation about the world without phones and internet that you still see it when, I'm here in India and these people don't have internet, and those documentaries will still happen. But check it. I mean, there's awesome to sleep to as well, but check out those old Attenborough documentaries, the Lost Tribes kind of ones. It's a time and place, and we'll never get to have those sort of documentaries again. They're very aggressive, of course. They're not they're very imperialistic, for lack of a better phrase.
Yeah, especially with his treatment of leeches. I was shocked.
Yeah, he hates leeches, which who can blame him? But David Attenborough, lover of all things, going on a tirade in his youth about how useless leeches must be. And it's true. He makes some great points. Like, they hang out on leaves all day at the chance a deer's going to walk by. Like, what dicks?
Yep, and there's not even enough fauna in this forest that he's walking through to even suggest there would be that many leeches. But yeah, it was, to see him break like that was a beautiful moment.
Yeah. And of course, the Ken Burns stuff.
Any favorite Ken Burns? What's your favorite?
I mean, World War II is just so understandable by me, you know, with my grandpa being in it and all. I've, you know, learned a lot about the Battle of the Bulge growing up, and a lot of school was focused on World War II over so many other events I would love to know about as well. So it's just an easy follow. And the way it was designed was very jump in and out, because they really related back to the hometowns of those soldiers. And so repeatedly through it, you kept hitting these beats where you'd check up in on soldiers from an earlier story and then get to know a new soldier by another soldier. And it was just fantastically laid out. Like Vietnam, this newer one, it's amazing. The Wild West, it's amazing too, but they're just not as clear.
Cool. All right. Now we get from Howitt Ryan, just how bad is the film Solo going to be? Followed by, what is your favorite, not obvious, Star Wars moment?
Well, we have you here for it. I've been doing my best to make an argument, I guess. I don't really want to call it that because it's so negative. But I've been trying to inform Garrett that Solo is not going to be good. But I know he's going to love it anyway, so I'm just arguing at a wall. So you're here now, Kristen. Tell me, why isn't Solo going to be good? Or just how bad is it going to be?
I'm going to say it's not going to be good simply because they didn't go with anything original. I mean, look how popular Rogue One was. And it was new characters, new story, and it did great. But here we have these characters played by these people, Harrison Ford and then Billy D. Williams, taken over by who? And people who will not be able to do Billy D. Williams' voice. So why didn't they just tell a new story, right? They used the same actors they got and tell a different story. Why, oh why, are you trying to give us not Harrison Ford Han Solo? That's why I don't think Solo's gonna do too well.
I think there's so little pressure on Solo to be good that it's not going to be good. Because they'll just pull it out for long and longer. You know, because you don't have to finish a story you don't finish. And that's kind of my problem with like a lot of fantasy books too, is they simply do not finish and end. You got to end. That's how as we talked about in horror earlier, that's how you make a decision about whether the story is good or not. But when you continually have these end of credit scenes, and even Marvel too, right? Like it just keeps going. And that feels like a cop-out every time. Because you're not making that strong choice.
Yeah, and again, why does it have to be a story that takes place before the original trilogy? Why can't it just be a story in the Star Wars universe? There are so many planets. The extended universe has so many tales to pull from, and ones that have really stood the test of time and been good. So that's where I stand with Solo. Like Kill's saying in the chat, it didn't need to happen. There are actors pretending to be people I really liked in the original trilogy, and they're not gonna be those people. No matter how well they act, they're not gonna be Billy D. Williams, and they're not gonna be Harrison Ford. Chewbacca, I guess Chewbacca's the same, but...
Yeah.
Okay. But aside from that, favorite not obvious Star Wars moment, I love Luke's reaction to Vader in Empire Strikes Back, when Vader reveals to Luke that he also saw Luke as the chosen one, taking down the Emperor. He saw it. And Luke is like, oh man, I think that's the moment. I love it so much because that's the moment our hero accepts that he is indeed the one. And if he lets go and falls and doesn't take Vader's hand, he's still going to go on to kill the Emperor. And that's such a great moment.
The ship's moved out of light speed. He chokes a man there. Is that 2?
Which one?
Because he does when he calls up the Emperor. That's in.
We don't see the Emperor until 2. Yeah, because it's a hollow call, and then we don't see the Emperor until what, 3? Or not 3? Pardon me, 6.
Yeah, because that's our first look at the Emperor with clay all over his face, and then we traded it out for new graphics with the relaunch. I mean, the seeds are really good there. Even in the first one, when they're walking around the ship, Princess Leia's ship, they even make a couple of mentions to the politics and why they're there, and just simply move on really fast. And those are great moments. I think it's tough to not just love the cantina. I love the wheeling and dealing and old Obi-Wan getting to show off his powers and getting to be the old wizard come back.
And let's not forget the little 4-wheeled thing that's running around in 4. The little robot car. I love watching for that guy.
Oh, with all the stormtroopers being super attentive to it.
He's just going. He's making his way.
It is cute.
Yep. So I think that's where we stand with that one. All right.
Well, thank you for being here to give that rundown on Solo, an informed opinion on Solo.
You're welcome. I could talk about it more, but we won't. Everyone is gonna like what they like. And that's where it'll go. All right. So Betty Wipe, good name by the way. Do you think there's a legitimate possibility Activision-related characters, Destiny, Call of Duty, could end up in HOTS? Likewise, what is a crossover in video games that you would like to see?
I think that'd be insanely sad, naturally. It's tough not to just say it'd be a bunch of gun guys. And that's the saddest part for me, is I want my monsters. I want to be things in video games I don't get to be all the time. It's why I pick the most monster-esque races when I get to choose what I get to be a lot of the time in RPGs. So I'd be really sad if we just got a Call of Duty dude and Destiny man, but I don't see that happening. I think what's going on here is actually just a business decision. It's a great platform. It works well. It downloads the game client. It has a shop, and Activision has access to it. Why would they not just use what's available in front of them instead of making their own, EA Origin product that might be crud with 5 games on it?
Yeah, and if anything, what they do is they'd bring in a skin or something, but I can't see them bringing in full characters. As for crossover, imagine this. Commander Shepard running through Alien Isolation. Less robot, more alien.
So you wanted more action-oriented.
Oh, yeah. Oh, totally. Basically, first Alien, but with Commander Shepard.
That'd be pretty cool. I could get behind that 100%. I think, for me, one thought I had recently is that I love XCOM, and I love Ghostbusters, and I would love XCOM Ghostbusters. You have a base, got yourself the firehouse, upgrade it, get new tech from Egon, head out with your group of 4, bust some ghosts, make some money, come back, spend that money, upgrade your base, and back and forth. Some sort of giant evil shows up. Could be from one of the nostalgia, one of the cartoons. Maybe there's some great, really built-up bad guys in the cartoon show, and that show actually had some stories to tell for how old it is, and how part of that Ninja Turtles animation time period it was.
Yup.
That's where I'd go, but I need some turn-based back in my life.
You can have all of it, Kyle. All of it. All right, Sir Crowels asks, is there anything you both share that is perhaps unique to yourselves as a couple, like a habit, quirk, or favorite thing to do together? Hope you both have a lovely day. Thank you. I hope you have a lovely day as well. We flex a lot. It's probably a quirk. We're always flexing. Well, I'm always flexing at you.
Well, you've been working out for a long, long time. And I'd say in the last year, 2 years, I finally got on that train well and been comfortable enough to enjoy a good flex from time to time.
Like a good drink, you know, from time to time. You really find a nice flex and you pull it out. We do instruments. Kyle plays violin, I play piano a bit, so we'll do that together.
But as for anything else, I mean, you've been joining me for that Arkham Horror card game I mentioned last week. We eat a lot of popcorn because fiber's really, really good filler food at the end of the night if you're hungry before bed. It doesn't have, too many repercussions.
No, you're just really thirsty. That's really the only thing about it.
Yeah.
All right, and we got a burning question with some Liddy emotes next to it. Mouse Divided asks, best fast food breakfast?
I think I've had McDonald's breakfast the most. And their system of making sure that breakfast is the same everywhere you go in the world is pretty nice. That's what's great about fast food breakfast, in particular, like a McDonald's. It's standardized. And I can have that same breakfast, 2 minutes from my house here, as I can on the road somewhere else in America and maybe elsewhere in the world. I know I've had McDonald's in Hawaii. I don't pursue it. It's just what happens, It's in airports.
IHOP, pancakes, really
is that
fatty
food?
Things, just dripping in grease. Ugh.
I guess that's fast food.
Yeah, I guess you sit down for it, so maybe it's not fast food. Maybe I need to rewind that.
I think you gotta have the drive-through in the modern era.
What about Burger King cinnamon sticks?
Sure, those are of course fast food.
All right, that's my choice.
Those were okay. I had to have syrup with them though, which kind of complicated the whole fast food in a car process.
Only if you don't like living life on the edge, though. You got the syrup between the legs, and you got to dip it, but you got to make sure the syrup isn't going to fly everywhere on your pants.
No, between the legs, are you insane?
What? Legs are used to hold things.
No, you're doing the legs are to hold the steering wheel while you have in one hand
maybe
the
for
cinnamon
you
stick
tall
and one
people,
hand in the syrup. Yeah, well, it's
my legs are stretched out enough trying to reach the gas pedal, much less control a steering wheel.
We're not piloting the car. I can't turn, but I can keep it going straight. I'm not saying this is a great idea, and you can, kind of one hand it where you have like the one hand on the wheel, and then sort of like a kind of gun hand gesture, and then take that into a pinch, and that's where you hold your syrup. And then you kind of do one of those, like, bring it over to your other hand dunkers and then straighten them out because you're going to have those tendrils of syrup in in transit between the two.
Yeah, or you get yourself a sibling or a friend or a significant other and have them feed you the food while you're driving. That's why you carpool.
I don't think you can...
No?
Getting fed while operating a motor vehicle is reserved for... trips of at least 4 hours or more. That's not a commute kind of thing.
Okay.
Maybe.
Okay.
I guess if it was every day, maybe you could request that. But I think there's an exhaustion tied to it. There's a, hey, I need to merge for the billionth time off this ramp, but I'm starving. Can you feed me? Because if we get in a car for a half-hour drive and you are so emaciated that you can't operate the vehicle without being fed directly, you've made wrong choices up to that point.
I love this. All right, True Villain Manny, and we're going into older questions here. You ready to take it back? Villain Manny asks, has there ever been a feature or decision in a game that you thought you would hate, but then turned out loving?
It's again, it's a very modern question, right? Because older games, if there were things you just didn't like about them, that was the game. Nowadays, we have this world where your game can be a certain way, and then you wake up the next day and it's not. Anything come to mind for you immediately?
Shadows of Mordor. I didn't think I was going to like that Nemesis system. I thought it was going to be a convoluted mess, but that turned out being the best part of that game, especially when we came across the orc that was named Mog or something, and he was staring at a tree. He was confused, and he was staring at a tree, and he had some drool coming out of his mouth.
Yeah, Tree Breaker. It was just such a cute game to remember all my little minions.
I really got invested in those individual orcs far more than I thought I would. What about spec? Was there a spec you were forced to go in some game that maybe you thought was going to be stupid, but you really ended up liking it? Maybe a guilty pleasure?
Yeah.
What about Mass Effect punching things? Did you think you were going to like punching things as much as you did?
Wait, Mass Effect?
Yeah. The zoom forward punch.
Yeah, you know,
you're a range guy.
Okay, you put my mind on the right spot. Yeah. I think you're right about that. Like, shotguns are the magic missiles, are the color sprays, the flame blasts of guns. And I think there's been a lot of sci-fi that I felt like I couldn't get into, but turned out really liking. Like, a Firefly is one of those that on the surface is missing a lot of the things I want in a story. Monsters and clear bad guys, factions, you know, a little toned down. But I really ended up enjoying that. And maybe it's limited run. You know, maybe the movie did a good job kind of wrapping stuff up, or at least finding a stopping point for it. I don't think I thought I would enjoy Mass Effect. I really wanted to because it was BioWare, and those names don't mean as much as they used to when Mass Effect 1 came out. I played Mass Effect 1 because it was BioWare. Nowadays, I don't play everything my favorite companies do just because I've learned. I've changed, and companies grew as well and put out products that aren't necessarily clones of their previous, or, you know, made by the same team of people. But yeah, I think shotguns I like way more in video games than I ever thought I would.
Did you ever name a shotgun?
There was the Krogan shotgun in 2, which I think you could upgrade to fire 2 shots before you had to reload, but originally it was only 1. But man, that thing hit like a truck, and I loved it.
Awesome.
Noob cannon is usually what you'd call a shotgun, though.
The noob cannon?
A noob cannon, yeah. That's what we normally called it in Counter-Strike growing up.
Because you were so butthurt when the little ones would own you with it? Because it did so much damage?
Well, it's what my friends would call it, probably because I wouldn't practice shooters like I would Super Smash Bros. Or StarCraft. So they'd load up with their fancy sniper rifles and all that, and GoldenEye taught me a great strategy that if anybody uses any aiming on you, you just run towards them as fast as you can. Oh. Because once you're in their faces, it's pretty darn hard to use a scope.
Yeah.
So a shotgun was pretty good at that. I was also really good at bouncing grenade launchers and figuring out those trajectories. I think that's from a lot of marble machines. Love marble machines.
They'll come back, Kyle, I promise. All right, Trump poll. How much do you think Marvel and DC Comics have changed the way they design characters and their looks for comics because of the movies? We are pretty far past the days of jokes about yellow spandex.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting to think about that joke being in that original X-Men movie. I mean, you can see Cap's evolution, which is fascinating to think about while he's made it through all the different outfits, even to the point where wasn't it the Spider-Man movie that had the so you lost, so you're in
Yes,
detention?
Spider-Man Homecoming. So you messed
And
up.
yeah, and he was wearing his Avengers 1 outfit for that.
Hmm.
But I guess that was the time period, right? Were we before Ultron?
Maybe. I don't know where Homecoming took place.
And it could be that, you know, his suit, well, I guess not, because Tony had fancy flying robot, but he had those in Ultron. So maybe it was before Ultron. And that was kind of the in-between where Stark had robots for Iron Man's and he wasn't always inside. But anyway, I think it's interesting that they either chose to mark the time period based on Captain's suit or that they changed it over time because it got more awesome. I mean, he looks freaking awesome with the double-handed shield stabbers and the beard and no helmet and all that.
Well, then we have to wonder, too, what changed first, the comics or the movies? What's influencing what? Or maybe that was one of those lines that was very clear when the movies began, but as it's gone on, it's become less clear and a bit more muddled. Because I know the 90s changeover, maybe it was Batman Begins. Maybe that's what brought it all back to a bit more realistic feel than a superhero feel.
I mean, that's what made that movie so great among so many other things is that Batman was a collection of tools. It wasn't necessarily a bat suit to be a bat suit. It was a ninja outfit that he put a helmet over.
Yeah, totally. And then it worked really well too because the last Batman that had been made was one of those wackadoodle neons, weird camera angles. It's not serious. It's very campy. But then along comes Dark Knight, and suddenly we have a very non-campy movie.
And maybe because Marvel was so separated from that, they were able to be like, wow, we like that style, but we're still us. Let's marry the two ideas. Whereas DC was like, this is what DC is now, and continued the very depressing stories they have since then.
Yeah, that's very true. DC went the dark route. Marvel kept with the campy but cool, I think is what they went with. So at least with Iron Man, and that's kind of what set the trajectory.
It's also fascinating that the uniforms weren't uniform. It maybe speaks to the vigilante kind of look of everything for particularly the X-Men. But it just made sense in the movie that they all put on the same color outfit. And yeah, it was changed a little bit so you can have a Storm cape. And, you know, this guy over here's got Cyclops eyes and belts crisscrossing. I don't think they actually had the crisscrossing belts at all for him. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure why the old comic way was so outrageous, is what I'm saying. Well, but it always made sense because when they showed up to fight Magneto, Magneto's brethren were dressed just as ridiculous.
Yeah, and maybe it was the 80s workout fashion, the leotards, right? That really influenced where fashion went because these are superheroes. They're jumping around. They got to be able to move. You need your leg warmers. You need your tights, your uni over everything.
I mean, it does help to define your identity, much like a wrestler. And I think that's stuff we just do for fun. And the heroes of old probably had lots of quirks and interesting outfits because they were imposing. Maybe they were good for battle. It's funny that nowadays, I think our thoughts immediately go towards marketing. Like, oh, well, that's just the marketing. They wanted to sell certain kinds of toys by having them do an outfit change. They want you to upgrade your collection. Or it's all just part of his advertisement dollars for that WWE event coming up.
Oh, maybe, right? Who knows how deep the rabbit hole goes with that. All right, next question, again from Kilmanark. What game have you played that you felt you were bad at, hitting a brick wall repeatedly, but kept playing because it was either still fun or still challenging for you?
I mean, you're basically describing Dark Souls.
But that one's hard to say, though, right? Because by the end of Dark Souls, I didn't feel I was bad at it. Now, StarCraft 2, I played through the final chapter, and that is one. Even by the end, I'm terrible at that game. But I really had fun with it. And
well, you played all through Legacy of the Void.
Yeah, Legacy of the Void. I'm terrible at that game. I will never stream that live because of how bad I am. But that was fun from beginning to end. It was really cool.
That's a good point to make, right? Is not necessarily just hitting the wall isn't necessary that you're bad at it. Like, I really enjoyed the core mechanics of Darkest Dungeon, and I wouldn't say I was bad at it when I defeated it. That was a lot of work. Maybe more towards the game that I had to keep butting my head against it in order to beat it. There's a lot of grinding, but grind is only a grind if you don't enjoy the core mechanics. So I wouldn't call Darkest Dungeon ever a grind, but I can totally see why it would be referred to in that way by others who didn't enjoy it as much as I. Games I'm just awful at, though. Yeah, StarCraft does kind of come to mind, doesn't it? It's an easy one there. I'm really bad at a lot of memory puzzles and word puzzles, being dyslexic. But I really do enjoy them, so occasionally I will butt heads very poorly with a crossword puzzle, particularly on a plane trip or so. And I would say I'm awful at that, but it is fun and challenging.
What about games that make you motion sick? Is there a game that made you really sick, but you pushed through to the end because it was just so much fun? Yeah,
Shadows of Mordor definitely had that. But then again, a lot of these games are more sickening because of a Steam controller. If it doesn't have a lock on, it's pretty tough to spin that camera to just the perfect point, and even kind of rolls past it with momentum, the way the Steam controller works at times. And that can be very difficult. I know I almost beat the new Doom. I was probably a couple rooms from that final boss, but it was due back at the rental, and I had to take so many breaks in order to keep going, because it's very fast-paced naturally. And the camera even throws itself around a little bit when you do melee executions. So I do struggle with motion sickness, even though I would like to beat the game.
And this one comes from True Villain Manny. Is Sylvanas evil?
I guess. You're more passionate about the answer than I. So what do you think?
I think we've taken her too far. Her story should have ended already. But as for her being evil, I don't think she is. I think she deserves to do whatever the heck she wants. She was raised from the dead and forced to destroy her own people, which she probably still has memories of. Oh, she's absolutely evil, but I think she's absolutely justified in having a story where she just gets to destroy everyone.
Where would you have had her story end, since you say it's gone on too long?
I would have had it end with Arthas's original story arc, because they were all tied together. Those characters told a great story. Time to move on and introduce new characters in a new story.
So would you have wanted her to, do an I stab you, you stab me ending? Or Arthas is dead and she just goes, my magic, and falls into a pool of pumps?
Frozen Throne end? Not Warcraft Frozen Throne. I'm not talking about actually killing Arthas and freeing his soul. I'm talking about his original arc where he takes the throne as the Lich King.
Oh, you're not talking about the MMO at all.
No. I think the story should have ended with Arthas, because that's a story, right? He was the crown prince, and he fell. And he fell so far, he became the Lich King. You ever fall so far, you become the Lich King? That's a great story right there.
Yeah. I mean, her story is a part of Warcraft 3. It's certainly not one of the main parts.
Yeah, she was just a side thing until she was freed and brought in to rule over the Forsaken in Warcraft.
Yeah. I mean, she had a great kit in Warcraft 3, so she was important. Originally, she was just a random Banshee model before they updated that for the expansion. So it's definitely a bit of a retcon business there too, to expand her story rather than just having the sweet heroic Banshee for the next level.
Yeah, so I think the reason I say too far gone is because if you keep pushing her story, it's soap opera levels. She's good, and then she's bad, and then she's good, and then she's bad, and then she's good, and then no one knows what she is anymore because no one even knows the full story anymore.
That's fair. I mean, that is the joy of Blizzard, though. It's very comic booky and very Marvel in that way that these characters do stay, and if they die, they may not be dead forever and could come back.
That's true.
I think you'd lose a lot of the driving force of what a modern World of Warcraft is, but yeah, just to tell a stronger story, heck yeah.
Okay, here's my preferred ending since Sylvanas keeps going. Varian comes back, Sylvanas and Varian. Because he's undead now.
There you go.
The end. They ride off into the sunset. The end.
Yep, and Greymane goes to the pound.
Yes, thank you. Get Greymane out of there. He's beyond saving. Hashtag controversy. All right, Babylon Redeemer. Favorite video game hero / villain?
Ooh. Oh yeah, we answered something like this last week.
Oh, okay.
And I ended up saying Harbinger was one of my favorite villains. But I was curious what you would have for your favorite.
I'm going to answer both with one. Hero villain. My favorite hero villain, Kratos.
That's a good one. That is a good one. Great games.
Sweet. All right, Andrew Tarnowski. What was a game where the writing was crap, but the gameplay was so satisfying that you loved it anyway? And the reverse. What was a game where the story was so engrossing that you slogged through it anyway to see how it ended?
So I got my gameplay one. It's always been prototype crap story. Actually, kind of cruddy everything, but the gameplay of running up a building and running around at top speed with superpowers in a very, very square version of New York City that wasn't actually modeled after New York City. It had the part, but they didn't model half the buildings. It was just awful. But man, I love the combat in that particular game.
Yeah, for me it would be Dead Space 3. I loved how they did the co-op. It was amazing where you're seeing one thing, your partner's seeing another, and then you both have different fights that you have to do in order to push through the insanity. Fantastic.
Yeah, a really convoluted story though, and it went really big on the aliens in the end, which were great enemies, but not necessarily a good place for that story to go.
Yeah. So did you have one where the story was really good, but the gameplay was kind of bad?
I mean, certainly looking back in time, that's a lot easier to answer because there's a lot of clunk in things like KOTOR. And if you played it today, I remember many times across multiple BioWare games even kind of becoming bored with whatever version of the game I was playing at the time. Like, oh, I've been talking to people forever. Can I go do a mission? Oh my God, this mission takes forever. Can I go back to talking people? I'm hungry. I want to eat some cereal. And that's great for when there's, cutscenes or talking on screen. And when I think of it like that, there's quite a few games that had stories where the combat or the grind was just too much. And Final Fantasy X comes to mind. That's a time and a place. I was a teenager, so pardon me. I wanted that story because it is a very kiss the girl, ooh, kind of love story, teenage thing going on there, angst and whatnot. No, you got to battle your father. The gameplay wasn't the best. The graphics were amazing though for the time period. So doing turn-based combat where you have to watch the summoning for the billionth time isn't as bad when those are the best graphics your eyeballs have ever seen in your life.
Totally. I
What
would
about
have
you?
to go with the first Witcher.
Oh, yeah,
You
good
know,
story, but just
that was rough to play through, but I really was invested in the story by the time it came to an end.
you're a better gamer than I for sitting through both that and two. Two is really complicated as well.
What? No, two is a ton of fun, man. Two is so good. Two is what set the stage for three. Like,
Totally.
go jumping from one to two, that's night and day. Oh
Oh,
my
it is.
gosh.
It is. It's just the
You didn't like the hats. That's admit
They're
it, Kyle. It's
stupid
the
hats.
hat. It
Yeah.
wasn't the gameplay. It wasn't the story. It was the hats.
There's some really dumb hats in The Witcher and most fantasy RPGs. My big problem with two is just I had a really hard time telling where I was and what to care about. Like so many games, God of War most recently being one of them. It's like, why would you open world that? There's no reason to. You're just adding filler. How could you do this? I'd rather have a very interwoven temple like the original God of Wars, where this key takes me all the way back through this passage to a place I saw forever ago, so I can finally get to that castle I saw out in the distance. One of the great things about Dark Souls as well, you see a castle in the distance, you get to go to it. That was a great thing about a lot of the Elder Scroll games too, but really convoluted in their size. And that was more of a, do you know how to play this game? I don't. Well, screw you, out into the world you go. There's a style to play a Elder Scroll game with that kind of makes up for that clunk.
Yeah.
But two, I just didn't know where I was and what I should be caring about at all times, because the open world of Witcher 3 and the way they laid out the handhold of the initial quest, the Baron, that you had to go to the town and then come back to the Baron. It was all very smartly laid out that I always had to go somewhere. I'm going to spend a lot of time in the future, but then come back very quickly. And that's how you learn an RPG town. It's not the Elder Scroll way where they have you by the scruff and they drop you into it and they say, good luck. Everybody, you can talk to everybody, have fun. Or even that's what's happening with Pillars. It's this, no. You need to beeline through the entire city to get to the bathhouse. Once you're done with that bathhouse, you're going to walk all the way back to the Baron's house. But now you have at least some semblance of an idea of where the Baron is in relation to where the city is and how big mentally that city is now. And eventually you'll figure it out.
Yeah, the natural discovery, which makes it feel a lot more organic than forced. Because who wants to be forced to do something, right? You want to discover it yourself because then you feel a connection with it. And you're like, yes, I do want to discover more on my own. All right, DM Kingsland asks, did either of you play non-Blizzard RTS games like Age of Empires, Command & Conquer, etc.?
Oh, yeah. I believe we both played quite a bit of Age of Empires in the past.
I had a college course that discussed early man and their early civilizations. And every weekend we had to play a certain chapter from one of the early Age of Empires. And that was really fun. That's
awesome. Those campaign missions were hard too.
I don't remember too much about it, but I've never been really an RTS kind of a girl. I like being up in something's face and hitting it. But of course, my dad never really brought home RTSs. It was always stuff like Prince of Persia and Diablo and all that stuff.
I did play Age of Empires when I was old enough and enjoyed it. I had quite a few friends who played StarCraft, and they moved on to Age of Empires. In particular, I had the guy who taught me how to play how you play StarCraft, not best map ever, not cheats. Got me into Age of Empires, and he would run Cavaliers, I think they were called, the mounted knights with blanket ponies, and he would just destroy everybody. He was really, really good. We'd meet up on, was it MSN? GameSpot, right? In order to connect on those games. And I did play quite a bit of Command & Conquer. It was on N64 when I first tried. And I actually made it pretty deep, I'd say. But Command & Conquer was before StarCraft, and Age of Empires is after StarCraft. And Age of Empires, because of the history of it, the units were a bit more interesting. But Command & Conquer I really struggled with because the factions weren't different enough. And once you've played StarCraft, and you can see what Zerg versus Protoss, even more so in StarCraft 2, just how different the races produce their units or do their upgrades or summon their units on the battlefield or drop them with medevacs or summon them on a pylon or burrows for Zerg. They just look so different that they're very exciting to play. And it's a great multiplayer because of that. In fact, Battle Right is a solid kind of, arena experience if you're into Heroes of the Storm. It's just that every character kind of has the same moveset. Everybody has a disengage. Everybody has a dive move. Everybody has a range spell. And it just means there's a lot of homogenization and battles just look kind of blobbish.
That sounds boring.
Right.
Cool.
Oop, did I lose it?
Oh, no, I'm still here. I would just, in case you had a thought to finish. All right, Badgerlord, if you could live on any known planet in Star Wars, which would it be and what would your career/life be? Assume you also have the means to travel off-world if needed.
Ooh, that's a fun one. Well, we did the Star Wars RPG, the pen and paper game, for a little bit. That was a lot of fun. I got to play an android doctor. I was a medical droid with a sniper rifle, so kind of a battle medic. I didn't really decide what planet I was from. I always figured I was just a robot there. What about you?
Me? Okay, so I gave this some thought because I saw this question earlier, and I would totally want to be one of the fish people on Manan from KOTOR.
Geez.
Right? I mean, originally I wanted to make myself the fish god, but that thing might get killed, might not get killed, and I'd rather avoid that iffy. So I'd be one of the fish people, and I'd probably be one of the performers. Or an underwater hunter, with my pod. And we go around and we catch seals. Munch on them.
Sure. Swimming would be fun if you were a water creature on a water world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there are a lot of different aliens and universes. I really like the droids, though. I think I'd stick to my original. And maybe I'd come from one of those junk planets. And that's one of the cute things about Star Wars is that it's so big that each world can be very defined and it can be themed, much like our Batman, gangs. They can each be themed by one particular thing, whether it's a junk world or, hey, this is the planet where all strawberries come from. Is every climate good for strawberries? No, there's a reason we grow them in certain parts of the world, but I think that's a cute thing about Star Wars.
So would you want to be a droid then, or would you want to be a squishy, an organic?
No, I think I'd rather be a droid. I think there's except for the fact that you can get your memory wiped, I think there's a lot of cool things about being artificial. In particular, that you can kind of hack the Matrix. You can load up on your little stick there into the Death Star.
That's true. Open the doors, turn off the trash compactors. It's all good stuff.
Well, we got so many awesome questions from people, but we'll, of course, save these for another show. I'm sure we'll be having Kristen back on soon. In fact, I know we'll be having you back on soon if future plans are to come to fruition. This was Weeksauce. It's available at amove.tv. You can find it on youtube.com, youtube.com/amovetv. Garrett will be returning next week, I believe. He will be missing from shows this week, so you can expect Jeff Kanata on this week's ITN and other replacements throughout the week. Kristen, where can people find you?
You can find me at _Kristen Ashton_ at Twitter, Twitch, and Instagram.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll see you next week for Weeksauce.
Bye.
Take care. Sweet.
Yay.
Awesome. Nice job, Kristen.
Nice job, Kyle. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks for watching, everybody. We're going to run.
All right. Bye, chat. Thanks for hanging out. Okay, I got it. Bye.